today we'll be discussing the Gender-Based Analysis Toolkit. And so together, the NAFC and the IYC named it the Colors of Friendship, Honoring Spaces for 2S LGBTQIA+ and Indigiqueer Inclusivity. So in this moment, I'd like to just remind each other that we all come from different parts of our learning. And so in this moment, we're going to be talking a lot about gender diversity. We're going to be discussing a lot of possible homophobia, transphobia. So this is a space where I'm really wanting us to meet each other with patience and vulnerability, and hoping that this toolkit can make its best impact on folks here today. Just a reminder, we also have a counselor on site each day as a helper to our sharing circles, but also to the entire Urban Summit. And so we ask that participants, if you ever need the counselor, just find us in the red lanyards and we'll be able to connect you with the counselor on site. We also have a sacred space that will be available and elders with us each day. So who are we and why are we sitting up here? So my name is Victoria. I'm a policy analyst with the National Association of Friendship Centers. So I work very closely with the health file, the gender diversity file, and the sport and recreation file. And I'll let my friends introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you back after lunch. Was it a good lunch for everyone? Yeah? Still digesting, I see. I'm Sam again. My pronouns are she, her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie. My pronouns are she, they. I'm Métis. Any cousins in the room? Some of my family names are Cunningham, Logan, Deese, Breland, Pilon, Paget, Hirondell, Grant. Shout out Grandpa Cuthbert Grant. I'm really excited to be here today and to learn with and from all of you. Thank you.
Ani Bojo, my name is Aurora Amanika Inose. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a project coordinator here at NAFC. Really excited to share space with you all today.
Hi, I'm Avery. I'm just here for a good time. Just kidding. My pronouns are she, her, and I think I forgot to mention that I'm from Oneida of the Thames in Southern Ontario.
Oh yeah, I'm from Wikwemkong unceded territory in Ontario.
I'm from Kitigan-Zibi in Anishinaabe. So if everyone can just maybe take a moment to introduce yourselves to the people around you at the table, and if you're comfortable, practice sharing your pronouns. All right, amazing, thank you. So my pronouns are she, her. And as I said, I'm from Kitigan-Zibi, I'm a policy analyst. So there's many ways that you can introduce yourselves and utilize pronouns in very creative ways or very straightforward ways. So the purpose of this toolkit is that, many Indigenous people are in need of spaces that can support their gender and sexual identities and to also explore them. So the creation of safe spaces can significantly help reduce one's feelings of isolation and help promote the feeling of belonging by creating a stronger sense of community. And I know that friendship centers have acted as an institution or an organization or just a sense of home. And that goes hand in hand with the sense of belonging. So when I think of this toolkit, I think it goes hand in hand with the Friendship Center movement. I think gender diversities go hand in hand with the Friendship Center movement because there's always a place for everyone. So the creation of this toolkit is meant to be an entry point to starting a conversation around 2S, LGBTQIA, and gender diverse members accessing Friendship Center supports, programs, and services. So in this way, we can support the advancement for gender equity and inclusion by creating welcoming and dynamic spaces. The goal of this toolkit is to be an accessible and comprehensive resource that can act as a guide to questions that one might have surrounding gender and sexuality. So I'm not, like I said at the beginning, we're coming from all different points of learning. So whether you know tons about gender and sexuality or whether you know nothing, this toolkit is aimed to support you in learning. No matter how old you are, where you come from, this is to support you and your own learning journey. And so here, there's a list of what is included in this toolkit. So we offer guidance that is pretty comprehensive, I would say, and culturally relevant. So a lot of the examples are referring to culture, kind of like what Dylan said, you know, that emphasis on inviting culture into the Friendship Center movement. That's what we're trying to do with the toolkit as well. An answer guide, and you'll see answer guide is in quotations because we believe that answers are not actual answers. They're meant to constantly be evolving to address the needs of the community. Culturally informed, so that it's Indigenous centered with resources drawn from Indigiqueer and 2S experiences. So the experiences of Two-Spirited and Indigiqueer folks are really what informs the toolkit. And acknowledgement of past and current supports that friendship centers have already been doing. So a lot of friendship centers within the movement have already developed their own programs and services that respond to the needs of the queer community, of the Two-Spirit community, of the Indigiqueer community. So urban Indigenous members accessing friendship centers and the PTAs, so the provincial and territorial associations, come from many different backgrounds, which must be acknowledged and respected. So members may have several identities that overlap in multiple communities that are more affected by racism and discrimination. So an example of that would be someone who identifies as First Nations, who is Two-Spirit, so like myself. It is acknowledged that friendship centers and PTAs are all unique in their approach to support delivery, and it is with great emphasis that the tools, resources, and materials within this toolkit are meant to be adapted to what might best fit your members and your communities, because our mission is to support your mission. All right, so I'm going to invite Samantha to help me out now.
Yes, so it's important to have more of an understanding of the difference between gender and sexuality, as often we see many people who do not walk this path with us refer to them as interchangeable and they're the same thing, but really they're fundamentally different, and they're always evolving and changing, and it's up to the person to define it for themselves. But roughly we have a definition here of gender, which is socially constructed. People can define their gender identity in various ways that include man or woman. However, there are also folks that may identify as gender fluid, non-binary, or gender non-conforming. And it's just important to keep that in mind, as gender can be a spectrum for people, or gender can be A or B, and both are okay. But it's important to have that awareness as we move forward. In terms of sexuality, it refers to attraction and can include several orientations. You can be gay, straight, heterosexual, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, etc. Both gender and sexuality can change throughout a person's life, just as we too also evolve through our lives. It's also important to be inclusive in our beliefs. Gender is a spectrum. There's a range of gender that identifies between and outside of the categories of male and female. Gender identity development happens from zero until death. And gender is a product of the mind, and it's influenced by nature, nurture, and context, how we're socialized in life. And there's no correct style of expression for males or females. It's healthy for people to express how they feel and who they feel they are. And being transgender or gender nonconforming is normal and healthy. Historically, gender nonconforming children have been given a psychiatric diagnosis. However, the manual used by psychiatrists is under revision, and the updated version is to be released in 2012, will not consider transgender or gender nonconforming children to have a disorder.
So historically, you can already see the evolution of what gender nonconforming, transgender, and what organizations have thought to be an issue or disorder or a mental illness. So we really just wanted to start off this activity that we're going to start. It's a terminology activity. So the sheets should be in front of you. I believe they were handed out. Wonderful, thank you, Leah. So we're gonna take the next 15 to 20 minutes. This is anonymous. You get to keep these sheets. Like, this is for your own learning. And what we're gonna ask you to do is we're gonna ask you to write what you think the words mean. So as an example, asexual. You can write what you think asexual means. And then we're going to go over each term together. But this is this is a part of the toolkit. We didn't put all of the definitions or all of the acronyms, but then we're going to help you go through all of them after. So please just take the next 15 to 20 minutes, no rush, go through them, do your best, and be patient with yourselves. The quote-unquote answer key, and I will let my lovely colleagues here walk you through it.
So, hello. So, for the term asexual, the absence or lack of interest in sexual attraction to any other gender, sometimes shortened into the term ace.
For B, we have bisexual, described by some as being attracted to both male and female individuals, or being attracted to more than one gender.
I just wanted to reiterate that there's not really like a wrong or totally right answer to any of these. So even though we have like an answer key, that doesn't mean that everyone shares the same definition. So like I'm pansexual or sexually fluid, but somebody else who says that they're pansexual will have a different definition from me. So just to reiterate that, like, you're not wrong, and also there's no embarrassment here. If you didn't know any of these or you just knew one, that's great. Like, thank you for participating. So, cisgender is an individual whose gender identity aligns with the sex that was registered to them upon birth. This is different from the romantic or sexual attraction. A cisgender person can identify as a member of the queer community as well.
The next one is gay, which is left open because there's so many different descriptions for it. Everybody has a different term for it. My take on gay is just someone who loves people.
Gender, again, this can be viewed as a socially constructed roles, behaviors, and expressions or mannerisms that define an individual.
Sex is a set of physical attributes that define a male, female, or intersex individual, usually given at birth. Both sex and gender, their definitions are both socially constructed, so the ways that we understand sex across time and across culture is different. We just have different definitions for it, so it's also an unstable definition.
The next one is sexual orientation. This can be described as the group or gender in which an individual is attracted to sexually, romantically, or emotionally. Individuals can be attracted to one or several genders simultaneously.
Next, we have gender expression, which is how one expresses their gender through different forms, including behavior, wardrobe, and or social behavior.
Gender identity is the internal feelings that one possesses of their own gender. It can be different from their gender expression, the way that they express themselves, performativities, and sex. So, for example, women, man, two-spirit, transgender, non-binary, etc.
Heterosexual is next, and it is an individual who is exclusively attracted to the opposite sex.
Next, we have intersex, which is set as a term for people who are between what is biologically defined as male and female. This can be the difference on hormones, chromosomes, internal and external reproductive parts, etc.
Lesbian refers to women who are emotionally, romantically, and or physically attracted to other women.
Non-binary, this is an individual who defines their gender between or outside of the traditional man-woman binary. Non-binary people can view their identity as diverse and may identify as transgender as well.
So queer is another term that has so many different definitions and is so unique to the individual person and how they choose to define it. Generally, for people that I support and work with in my center. Queer is something that seems very inclusive for how people define their sexual orientation or gender expression or gender performance. And so queer is one of the more encompassing words for people at my center. And it's yeah.
Transgender, this describes a person's gender identity that is different from what was assigned to them at birth. These individuals can choose to undergo surgery or therapy to go after their biological traits to match their physical traits with their general gender identity words. I'm so sorry. I'm also kind of blind.
I am also blind, which is why I'm reading it off my phone and not off the screen. My apologies. I'm not trying to ignore you. Two-spirit or 2S. This is a term used by some individuals who identify as Indigenous and view themselves as possessing male and female traits. However, it reaches far beyond the simplicity of gender or sex. This term can be seen to encompass sexual, cultural, gender, and spiritual identities and is defined differently by many who identify using this terminology.
If I could just jump in real quick. Myself, I define myself as two-spirit, and I don't go by this definition. My personal definition is how I'm two-spirit is I have both masculine and feminine spirits that live within me, so that's how I interpret that.
2S LGBTQIA+ is the acronym for these definitions. So two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer or questioning, intersex, and asexual plus. So there's a plus sign at the end of that. There's always an etc. because even within these we cannot capture just how many people are actually included in our communities.
And NB is an acronym for non-binary.
And GNF is gender non-conforming.
And then KMAB and KFAB, yeah, is coercively assigned male/female. So that's the acronym.
What does that mean?
So at birth, when you come out of the womb and somebody looked at me and said, she has a vagina, so she is a girl, I'm coercively assigned female at birth. So it's kind of just a description of the ways that we come into the world, and then we are automatically assigned and assumed, and then the rest of the way that we are treated is based on that definition of how we come into the world.
So this is the portion of our toolkit that we're extremely thankful that Riley has provided for us. And we've been very supportive of her work. So Indigiqueer and Two-Spirit people have been a part of our nations and communities since time immemorial. So one big thing is that we have always been here. So according to the work of the MMIWG 2S Plus subworking group, of the 200 Indigenous languages spoken throughout North America, at least 150 of them have terms to identify individuals who are neither male or female. So 150 out of 200 languages have a word or a way to identify individuals, people who are neither female or male. So our languages tell us what we already know, that we have always been here. Not only have we always been here, but we have always been accepted and in many cases celebrated. And we know that many other nations hold stories of similar queer figures. So this is an opportunity to reflect maybe on our teachings that don't use that binary to construct the people and the teachings that we know as sacred. Colonizers recognize these understandings of gender and sexuality diversity amongst Indigenous people. In fact, some of the earliest written accounts of Indigenous queerness come from the Jesuit missionaries in the 1600s. Our acceptance and love for queer people went firmly against the Western and Christian worldviews at the time and became one of the earliest targets of annihilation at the onset of colonization. So think of the testimonies from residential school survivors. Repeatedly, we'll hear survivors share how some of their earliest memories from the schools include being separated from their siblings on the basis of gender, having their hair cut on the basis of gender, and being forced to wear certain clothes on the basis of gender. So the imposition of gender norms and expression were learnt. and through colonization. And I think about my son in this instance. So we were just talking about my son yesterday. So my son's 5 years old. He's a boy. He always looks at me, he's like, Mom, I'm a boy. He's a grass dancer, but in a pink, he wears a pink grass dancing suit. He wears his ribbon skirts proudly. He came to our retreat, our staff retreat, in a pink cat dress. You know, he loves his hair in long braids, but he's a boy. And he never lets me forget he's a boy. And he's so proud to be a boy, and he's so proud that his favorite color is pink. He's so proud to wear his grass dancing outfit that is pink. He's so proud of his cat dresses. You know? And so I think that's a moment where I just take in and I'm like, wow, this kid is teaching me more than I'll ever know. You know, these youth have taught me more than I ever know in the circumstances of creating the toolkit. I'm like, wow, this is so wonderful. This is refreshing because I'm learning from them. I'm learning from my son. So my best teacher right now is my 5-year-old. And so that's what I think about. The history is coming back, and I see that in supporting his confidence in his own expression, his gender expression. So unfortunately, many of our members of our communities have difficulty seeing these truths. So how can denying a present be a symptom of internalized colonial beliefs? So I do know that a lot of times when we're possibly accessing services in the Friendship Center movement, how can we ensure that we're not internalizing this colonial belief of stigma related to gender and sexuality? How can we open our minds and become a little more gentler with ourselves and our learning to ensuring that we create a safer space for those people who may not express themselves in gender and sexuality as the same as us? So that's a little bit about the history and how we know colonialism has impacted us. We talk about it all the time in education, healthcare, but we don't necessarily talk about it in a gender and sexuality connotation. So that's a little bit about our conversation that we've had yesterday. So now we're going to talk a bit about respecting pronouns. So earlier today we asked each other, just as a small way, to kind of introduce pronouns to some of you. So my pronouns are she, her. I do identify as a woman. I'm very comfortable in my own skin as a woman, but I know that many people share different pronouns. So pronouns are important in respecting gender identities. And that's what I say, when we respect each other's pronouns, we respect each other's humanity. They allow individuals to be referred to in a way that affirms and validates their gender identity, but their humanity. Using a person's desired pronouns can create a more inclusive and welcoming environment as we are acknowledging and affirming their identity. So their entire being, their spiritual being, their physical, emotional, mental wellness is all being affirmed by just using something as simple as their pronouns. And it's something just as simple as introducing your own pronouns. If you don't feel like asking someone like, hey, Shelby, what are your pronouns? I could say, hey, Shelby, my name's Victoria. And I use she, her pronouns. And sometimes that's a cue into engaging or introducing the person to do the same. So common pronouns can include she, her. So she likes to make moccasins or moccasinons. He, him. He likes to cook bannock. They, them, they enjoy grass dancing. So even with Bo, I don't want to instill that coercive language on him. So I try to use, when he was younger, I would use they, he, she, but then he would tell me, no, Mom, I'm a boy. And I was like, okay. So now I use he, him, because he feels more comfortable with that. But as we said, it might change. And if it changes tomorrow and it changes again next year, then I'll use the pronouns he's more comfortable with. Even as a 5-year-old, I respect his humanity as a parent. So I don't know if someone else wants to continue reading some of the...
Sie, her, and zer. Sie enjoys beating with her kokum.
She, they like to tap trees to make maple syrup. She bottles it up and gives it to her nitap. I hope I said that right.
He, they, his ribbon skirt is too small for him. Now that they've gotten older, they will ask their kukum to make a new one for special events.
So oftentimes, I know the question that I get, and that we talked about yesterday a little bit, is who was talking about that, and they described it as, you know, how the church would slap people if they used their left hand. And so there was no left-hand writers way back in the day. I really like that analogy. No one was writing with their left hand, everyone was writing with their right hand. Because now there's that discourse of, well, there's so many queer people now, there's so many gay people, there's so many lesbian people nowadays. Well, there's no like harmful repercussions. There's no like church and state telling us that it's bad to be gay, it's bad to be queer, it's bad to be lesbian, it's bad to be who you are. So there's a lot more acceptance. There's a lot more development of safer spaces to be who you are and to be proud of your gender and sexual identities. So you'll see a spike, just like we saw a spike after people were allowed to write with their right hands, after we saw a spike of right-handed writers. So now, right now, society is becoming more open and more comfortable with various gender identities that have always existed. Left-handed writers have always existed. So now we're seeing society becoming more welcome, and so we're seeing more people becoming more open with their gender and their sexuality. And a lot of questions that we had yesterday was, okay, so let's say she, they, and maybe I'll leave it to people who have she, they pronouns, but how, I guess a question for you folks then is, how can I be inclusive to both of your pronouns for she, they? And what are ways that I can promote not just she and not just they, but being inclusive to both?
Personally, when people introduce me, they always say she, but it is she, they, because I am two-spirited. How to include it is just whatever you're like, when you're talking, if you go, oh, hey, you, or not, I mean, not hey, you, that's my mom. Anyways. If you say, oh, she really likes to bead, and then all of a sudden, straight after, like the little definition here, oh, they really like to bead. You know, it's like whatever comes to your mind first. If you're like talking and they just happens to come out, I'm fine with it. It's like you could use either or. You could use one more than the other. I'm not going to be mad. It's just, you know, she, they. So when you're talking to me, you're like, hey, they. Jokes. I'm just kidding. But, you know, that's how I interpret it. And I'm not going to be upset with anybody if you use one more than the other. As long as you use one or the other, I'm fine with it. And I'm not going to get mad at you and be like, it's she, they, you call me she, they. Like, you know, I'm okay.
Can I say something? Yeah. In terms of pronouns as well, like sometimes we are in positions where maybe, I never like to use the word corrected, but maybe we're corrected as to someone's pronouns, and someone says, oh, actually my pronouns are they, them. It's so instinctual for us to immediately go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What I encourage people to do is actually to say thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for allowing me to see you as your whole self, as your whole person. Because generally, if you're corrected, it's a huge sign of respect, and we know this in our culture. Being correct is a huge sign of respect because it means we want to further our relationship with you. We want to continue to be in relationship with you. And being corrected is just demonstrating how to treat us in that good way, in that respectful way. So I encourage you to explore this next time something comes up where maybe you're guided into a different direction in terms of how someone identifies or their pronouns, and instead of instinctually, you know, that whole Canadian stereotype of saying, I'm so sorry, being able to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to respect you and respect your person.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about allyship in a little bit, but not being afraid to make mistakes. And it's just about the accountability measures that we have. And so within the Friendship Center movement, we're going to be making mistakes with each other, but we're also going to be learning with each other and from one another. So thank you. Yeah. Well, now we're going to talk about exploring our own perspectives of being Indigiqueer or two-spirited or lesbian, gay, bisexual, or questioning. So I guess I can start with a bit of my story. I don't really talk about my sexuality at all, and especially, you know, bringing myself as a professional in the workplace voice. I know that I see Jen, and I'm like, Jen, like, we worked on this for a while last year, and it's the GBA toolkit took a little time to really come about, but it was youth driven. And so at the NAFC, myself and Hunter Dawashi, who's also from Kitagan-ZB, was working for our communications team, and we were leading this project with the youth council. And Hunter knows I don't talk about my sexuality. Hunter is one of my really close friends, and I'm married man. I gave birth. You know, I've done a lot of heteronormative things, and by heteronormative I mean I've done a lot of things that a straight woman does. And I look straight because I am married to a man, because I am a mom, and so I look like a classic woman. But I have dated women, you know, but I don't talk about it. I don't talk about a lot of my sexuality things because it is taboo in my family, and it's learned to not talk about those things in my family. And so work became a space for me, like the Friendship Center movement, truly, like, not to be a cliche, became a space for me to actually start talking to it and being inspired. That intergenerational inspiration that we talked about all morning, like, really inspired me to just low key come into who I am even more. And I am a bubbly person, and I am a very outgoing person, but I'm even more comfortable in my own skin than I was last year. And so that's a lot more than I can say about myself. And it's very, very beautiful that I get to learn from my colleagues and now my friends. So that's a little bit about my story. And I'm still working on being more, you know, proud and being more open. But I think I do so through my parenting. So I think it's a beautiful way and a beautiful full circle. So yeah, I know that we wanted to share a bit of our experiences, so I don't know who wants to go next.
One of you guys want to go first, because I feel like I'm going first.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I only came out like 2 years ago, and it was actually at my Friendship Center that I was able to do that. Actually, the first person that I told is actually in this room. From my center, and it really gave me a lot of sense of, like, really fully accepting who I am for all of me. I went through elementary school into high school, and did I say I was bisexual? I don't think I did. I'm bisexual. Hi, I'm gay. I'm bisexual, so I'm attracted to male and female. And aside from my youth council, the only person that I'd known before that was my high school girlfriend. Everyone just assumed we were best friends, but we actually dated for a while, and we decided that we wanted different things in life and that we were better off as friends, and she was still my best friend after that. I feel like that's a trope in and of itself in the lesbian community, to be friends with your exes. But we were friends. And then I started dating men again, and I found my life partner, my current fiance, who's a man. And we've been in each other's lives since high school. And so I really struggled with whether or not I actually wanted to come out. And it was a huge internal thing, a lot of existential angst and just thought-provoking for several months. And I really wrestled with, does it even matter if I come out? Because I'm with a man, I'm committed to this man, you know, we're getting married. It doesn't matter if I come out. But then I decided, through the support that I received from my Friendship Center, through my youth group specifically, that denying that part of myself was denying all of myself. And I deserved more. I deserved better. And so I came out pretty turbulently, because I'd wrestled with it for several months about why does it matter. And I'm pretty sure I started crying with my youth group, but that was the first time that I felt that true, real, unconditional love from people that weren't in my family. And to have that sense of community and that sense of support and love and compassion, and although so many of them in our youth group that weren't queer, be able to share and express that and share in that moment was just so beautiful. And it's something that we've seen start to spread throughout our center specifically. But we really want to see more of those safe spaces, and it starts with conversations really here like this. It starts by sharing some of this education, maybe broadening our perspectives a bit into this work, so that we can create, curious spaces where maybe we can create some braver spaces to be able to explore this. And I'm just really grateful that there's so many of you here that are willing to sit here today and to listen to these perspectives, especially those of you that might not have known some of the terms from before. I'm just really grateful to see people showing up for the queer community.
Okay. I am sexually fluid or pansexual, and feel very fluid and free in the way that I think about my gender. So I don't really feel constrained by much in my little head. I never really had a formal coming out or anything like that. I just was living the way that I've always lived. And yeah, I remember when I was 14, I asked my mom, I was like, do you think you could marry a woman? And she was like, I'd love to marry my friend Arlene, but no, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, I think I could. And she was like, all right, well, you're lucky. And I was like, okay, great. And that's the most formal introduction that a conversation her and I had about it. However, she doesn't even remember that conversation, so. But at my Friendship Center, I started working as a youth support worker, and specifically supporting 2S LGBTQIA+ youth. And same with doing a youth drop-in that was for 2S LGBTQ youth as well. And I think through that, I got to figure out the language that I'd like to use for myself more, in helping them find language that they liked for themselves. So I'm grateful for this toolkit and being able to explain the way that I feel with the language that's used in here, and also the way that it will forever change. I'm always going to find new language to describe how I'm feeling about myself and how I feel about everybody that I love.
Me personally, growing up, I grew up strictly Catholic. Got baptized as soon as I flew out of the womb. As soon as I could walk, I got roped into my first communion. So I was straight all about church, everything, went every Sunday with my mom and my grandpa. I lived in the city most of my life. I didn't actually move onto my reservation and learn about my culture until I was about 12. And that's where I met my best friend. She is a lesbian. And I've always felt that I liked boys and girls and people. And growing up Catholic, that's very no. If you're gay, no, hell, you're going. So I was terrified to let anybody know. And here I come to this, to my res, and I meet my best friend, and she's just so open about it. She was just straight up. She was like, I like girls. And I was like, cool. And then she's like, I'm a lesbian. And I was just like, what's that? And then I was like, so I got comfortable with her, and I told her, well, I like girls and boys. And she's like, oh, that means you're bisexual. And I was like, okay, I'm bisexual. Still didn't really want to tell my parents. So I'm going to get a little emotional about this, but my grandpa, we were driving down this road. He's passed now. This is why. I was like, Grandpa, is it okay for a girl to love a girl? Is it okay for a man to love a man? And what he told me, love is love. And then I was like, Grandpa, I love everyone. And then that was how I came out to my grandpa. And as I got older, actually more recently, 19, I'm 24 now, I realized I'm not just bisexual. I don't just like guys, I don't just like women. I love everyone. And little backstory about me, you might see it later in the slides. I was supposed to be a twin, but I ate them in the womb. They were a boy, and I fully believe that my twin, he lives within me. We live together, we share the same soul, we share the same body, we share the same everything. So he lives with me, and that's why I identify as two spirits, because I have two spirits, masculine and feminine, in me. And also, when people see me, because I'm a mom, I'm in a heterosexual relationship with a man, they're like, oh, she's straight. She's got a kid. She's straight. And I'm like, no, I'm gay. And then with that too, I don't tell my son, he's 3, I don't tell him, oh, you can't play with girls' toys, or you can't play with these toys. He just plays with whatever. Literally, he freaked out on me when I tried to give him his dinosaur cup. He wanted his sister's, my niece's butterfly pink cup, and I was like, you do you, boo. Just gave it to him. But yeah, that's kind of my story, and how, and it also, I could change tomorrow and be like, you know what, I just love everybody, just call me whatever. But it's always changing, it's always growing. You're never just one definition. It's what you feel. And right now, I'm a two-spirited woman. They, But yeah.
Thank you, they. No, you see. Can we clap? I'm sorry. For all of these wonderful youth. And so that's what I'm learning from. These are the people I get to learn from. Thank you so much again. I can never get enough of these stories, and every time I hear them, I'm like, wow. Thank you for making us all feel warm. So the toolkit really encompasses this. We have written down our stories, and it's in the toolkit, and it will be available to the Friendship Center movement. So we're going to move on to a bit of what we talked about, allyship. So here we say, being an ally is an ongoing process. So an ally, to me at least, if you're not a part of the queer community, you still are a part of the queer community, because support is needed, right? So being an ally is an ongoing process and requires a commitment to learning, listening, and taking action to create inclusive and supportive environments for all members of the community, so all members of the Friendship Center movement. I just want to reiterate, so if you're going through this workshop and you're still kind of thinking this doesn't really quite make sense, that is totally fine. These are gender and sexual identities have existed since time immemorial, and colonization has honestly led us to believe that these are new terminologies. So our open minds require us to show compassion, skills of validating other experiences. So the difference between someone trying to show understanding and an ally is that everyone has the ability to make mistakes, but the ally will carve out the space to become accountable for those mistakes made. So I wrote down, these are questions from the toolkit itself. So for the Friendship Center movement, we can ask ourselves, do we have Two-Spirit or Indigiqueer folks within the staff or on our board? Like, are these questions that we can answer? Are these questions we're able to ask ourselves or ask other people? Do we have policies in place that specifically speak to what action to take when we notice forms of discrimination, such as homophobia, transphobia? Do we know who to talk to? Do we have a director? Is there managerial staff? Or is it colleague to colleague? Or can we report this anonymously? Are there tools to report anonymously within our own Friendship Center movement? Or do we have to go and talk to the national office or our PTA? Like, what is designed within the Friendship Center movement to talk about forms of discrimination? Do we want to do formal process or a mediation process or a traditional process or not a process at all, or a conversation? How prevalent is Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer programming that we offer? Or do we offer any at all? How do we know this programming is safe? How do we measure safety? Who says it's safe? Do we have programming and services that are specific and intentional for 2S LGBTQIA+ community members? And if not, what are my first steps to developing them? And so here we really want to think about how the toolkit can give us points of reflection. In the face of discrimination, how can we ensure safety for Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer relatives? What interventions can we include into the Friendship Center movement? So these are all considerations that we can ask ourselves, points of reflection we can ask ourselves. And I believe in the toolkit there are 20 points of reflections that ask questions such as these. They're not, a lot of them are not meant to have strict concrete answers, but they're a point to allow us to reflect on the work that we're doing and to ensure the safety of Two-Spirit folks. I don't know if anyone else has something to add on allyship at all, or what it might mean to the movement. No, it's all good. So what have other friendship centers done? As I mentioned previously, a lot of friendship centers have already done a lot of the work and are continuously doing the work. So there's a Pride Committee at the St. John's Native Friendship Center. The Val-d'Or Native Friendship Center launched its ever first Pride Festival in Val-d'Or. 1,500 people participated. The Aboriginal Friendship Centers of Saskatchewan included an entrepreneur information session that focused on Indigenous women and 2S LGBTQ+. And so these are all available in the toolkit as well. We talked about the Maniwaki Friendship Center. Obviously, I'm a little biased with that one. That's my friendship center back home. And they have queer employees there that really drive the Pride Parade, the Pride floats, a lot of the queer programming. The Victoria Native Friendship Center, I'm sure Maddie can attest to a lot of the strength of 2S programming as well. They have an annual gathering as well. And then another friendship center in BC, Dieselkant Friendship Center also has Two-Spirit programming. So those are just examples of what we're able to do within the Friendship Center movement. And we're able to use each other as examples. We don't have to make brand new programming up. We don't have to build new services out of the ground. We listen to the movement and we allow the movement to inform what is needed. So listening.
Yeah. So this toolkit that's going to be made available is going to change over time as more people come into this circle and add to these conversations. Just as we're not static, so is this toolkit. It's going to be evolving. It's going to be informed by the members, really queer-led, which is so important. But just as we enter the space in kindness, we also want to make sure that you feel supported in this work as well, whether this is something that you're just encountering for the first time. We want to celebrate you and thank you for being here in this space with us. Your presence, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally in this space, really contributes a lot. Just showing up for the queer community says a lot. While we do have many safe spaces, so many spaces have yet to catch up to some of these other spaces. So many of our institutions that we see are not queer inclusive yet. They're making strides, but this is why conversations like this are so important. To bring that forward and just to be gentle with yourselves. We as the queer community, we're always learning. We're learning from each other, and if we don't have it all figured out, we don't expect you to. And just to have that sense of humility, but above all else, to have love for each other with that good reminder of love is love, and that we, as Indigenous people, it's one of our very core values is love, to love and support each other, to show up. And so we just really wanted to validate your emotions in this process and share that we're here to support your learning. And we hope that this was insightful for many of you. And I think we're going to move into some question period. Yes?
Yeah, so we're going to move into questions and feedback, and we would offer space to talk about your thoughts on the workshop, what else we can do, because moving forward, the Indigenous Youth Council will be doing a lot of presentations on this, and we'll be doing webinars, workshops, and a lot of interactive activities. The toolkit will be uploaded onto our website shortly, and it will be interactive for the whole movement to use. If there's anything that you see missing, should include any ways that you can support this toolkit as well, or learning how to use it. We do have a methodology that we're using. It's water. Water is fluid. Water remembers. Water is a teaching in itself. And so the graphic isn't finished for that yet, but yeah. So there's a lot going on with this, and we're very, very excited together. So if anyone has questions, we can move the mic around. Leah's there, and we'd be happy to answer or listen to your comments and feedback.
Wow, thank you. Hello. Hi, I'm B. Thank you all so much for sharing. This was a wonderful presentation. I saw this on the schedule that got sent out a few weeks ago, and I've been so excited to come here and sit with all of these wonderful people and listen to you guys speak. How beautiful. I love that. I think that this toolkit is exceptional. I think this is going to do a lot of really good work for the friendship movement. I think, like, I don't know, in my friendship center even, just like myself and a few of my colleagues being authentically ourselves, expressing our identities in meaningful ways, has really helped open the door for a lot of people in our center to disclose their identities and step into their most authentic self more fully as well. And so my question, oops, I flipped the page. So my question is, this toolkit is designed for people within the NAFC to help improve their programming, help improve their capacity for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. And so I'm wondering if there are plans to expand the toolkit so that we can help bring it to the community at large and just like bring more education into it.
Yes. We were discussing this yesterday as well, and we want to kind of look at ways that the toolkit can be put into very accessible terms, like very on the ground. So we're talking about a website that's interactive, but also possibly like a zine or a comic book, so that it is like very accessible. I know at my friendship center, like in our youth drop-in room, I'd leave comic books there all the time. I think they're Richard Van Camp ones. And there was a couple of like getting dirty ones about like how to use a condom and like all this stuff in really accessible like terms. And they're silly and fun, but it makes somebody pick it up and then read it, and you are learning something. So we are talking about the ways that we can implement this toolkit, not only for like how to do programming, but then how to hand that to somebody and they can look at it as well.
Yeah, there's just one more thing I wanted to share that I usually try and be more mindful of, and that I try and bring in when I guess I share my story is there's always this term of coming out, this idea of coming out, but I heard this really beautiful two-spirit speaker, I forget which conference it was at, but he mentioned it as coming into himself, stepping into yourself, not coming out as someone who's queer, but fully stepping into yourself and stepping into who you are. And that was just really beautiful, and that's usually what I've been trying to say moving forward, but there's just another perspective of just how beautiful and how wonderful language can be when you know, exploring our identities, and I just thought that was a really beautiful story that I would share.
Miigwech, that's really beautiful. I really I feel like I can speak on behalf of all of us, is like seeing you here and this intergenerational inspiration that I've kind of touched upon gives us strength. Vulnerability gives us strength, especially in the queer community. So I can't thank you enough for sharing that. And just, you know, talking about your family member, that has happened to a lot of us too, and it's a very real thing that happens with our family members who might not feel like they belong in a certain community, and so they leave to go seek that belonging, right? That sense of belonging that we touched upon earlier is very, very important to understand. And at NAFC, we always talk about the migration of Indigenous people, but we don't talk about the migration of the purposeful removal or the movement of queer or Indigiqueer and two-spirit people and the reasons why. And so I think you're totally right. This is something that maybe we can include in the toolkit, is to talk about that part of lived reality, of that removal of community, or that removing yourself from a community because you feel that you can't be your true self in your gender and your sexuality. So you go and find that belonging elsewhere. So I thank you so much. I'm just noting the time. I think we have 5 minutes, so maybe we can have one more question if anyone else has a question or a comment or consideration. And yeah. Yeah, sure. Right over here, Leah.
I don't know if anybody.
Maybe for the recording.
Yeah. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. I'm Deborah Andrews from the Canadian Indian Friends Centre in Edmonton, Alberta. Our organization in Edmonton is very inclusive. We removed all the names off even the bathroom doors. I have somebody who is transgender that works with us, but I don't say this is Jordan, he's transgender. I say this is Jordan, he's my manager. I don't use labels because everybody is equal, and you know, like it's the labels, I think, that stop people from being inclusive when we put labels on everybody, because it's the labeling. Even like ever since I was a young lady, my mom had a friend who was male, and then he started coming, he kept visiting, and then I noticed he started to have female attributes. He had breasts, and then he was wearing, and I'm just, I asked him one time, like, how come you know, like, are they real? And here he was transitioning. So from growing up surrounded with people who are transitioning or who are different, I find these people that are different are the kindest, most accepting people that I've ever met. So in my family, like, it's just a normal, they're not different, you know, so I don't see people as different. So it's the labels that makes people different. So I don't put labels on anybody. So I really think that's what inclusion is, when we're not labeling anybody. So I hope that, so my hopes, I guess, is for everybody to be all inclusive and remove all the labeling and accept everybody as human and accept them for who they are and what they want to be. That's my hope.
Jimmy Glitch. Yeah, I think we included Edmonton in the toolkit and the work that they do. There was a lot. I think I only included about 6 of them in this slideshow, but yeah, there's a lot of great work happening there. And
Yes.
yeah, so thank you so much. I think like when I hear about you know, how queer people could always be like the most gentle, the most accepting, I think a lot of times people are like that in the queer community because people did not show them kindness, so they know what it does to them, so they don't want to make other people feel that way. So just thinking of the time, I just want to wrap this up and say a huge kichimigwach to everyone, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and comments. And we also have an evaluation, a QR code you can find on your table, so you can provide feedback about the workshop. Jen's holding it up right here, so you'll find it on your tables. You can scan it with your phone. And if you don't have a phone, we can help you out with the website. And we have tablets as well. So if you don't really have a phone that's accessible or able to access the QR code, you can find the tablets as well, and we'll be able to help you with that. So please fill out the evaluation forms. That would be excellent. So once again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed our workshop.